Hey everyone, it's Jody here with Pugh Leadership Academy and Melanie Pugh, DMD. This is the third episode of our podcast slash vlog, and we are launching this by answering a lot of the questions that we see showing up on Reddit or Facebook groups or in different places. And one of the things that is important to note as I'm going to answer a question today on how we would handle one of these things is that whenever you see something that someone posts a question and then you see a lot of answers, the thing is you never know about the people who are answering what their experience is, what their success is, what their philosophy is. Are these people who are trying to build multiple locations or one single location? The insurance offices, not insurance offices, what are their core values or just values in general? And so you can't really ever pay attention to anybody's input unless you happen to know the person that's commenting. And so our office is, we have two core values: do the right thing and tell the truth. We are very focused on the experience that our patients have and it being like a warm hometown where they feel like part of the family, so to speak, a place where our staff finds meaning in their work, our associates are happy, the practice brings joy to the doctor, and we are fee for service. So I'm going to answer another question today through that lens, the lens of how our philosophy. So today's question that I'm going to answer is, what do I do when a staff member complains about an issue with another staff member? And so this is a very big question with a very big answer. And I can imagine, my virtual assistant actually goes out and collects these. I don't know where this came from, but I'm sure that there's a lot of answers like, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. But this one really speaks to your culture in your office. And so that's with PLA or Pugh Leadership Academy, we have a series of courses. Our first one has now launched and it's on culture. The way that we describe it is, if you want to have a dream practice, like I just described a moment ago, you have to have world-class culture. And to have world-class culture, you really have to have a championship sort of mindset. And so this plays right into that. So for us, the way we would handle that is it's just not acceptable in our culture for that sort of thing to happen. And we talk about that in our interviews. And so one of the things that I notice when people come in and I interview them, sometimes I will talk to them about, well, what are your other interviews like? Our interviews tend to be pretty long, and they will say, well, they just asked me if I could do this, this, and this, and then they hire me or they do whatever. And so for us, setting the expectation right at the very front about what our office is about and what the culture is like is very important. It's crucial. And I just actually was in an interview as I'm recording this yesterday, hired someone yesterday as a dental assistant, and we literally talked through these things. And, as I'm talking about, part of our culture is that we're very helpful. It's actually one of our work values in our practice. And another one of our work values is to be drama-free. And the way that we do that, or one of the ways that we do that, is we make it clear it's not healthy for the organization or our practice if we go to the kitchen and grab a snack and someone else is back there and we start talking negatively or complaining, or we text people like, oh my gosh, what was wrong with Jody today? Or as we're carrying the trash out together, we don't do that. We make it very, very clear that not that it's against the rule, but that, hey, we have a really special culture here. We have a world-class culture here. And one of the biggest culture killers is complaining. So as we are interviewing, as we talk about this, we are really seeking out people who are the right fit in our practice and inviting them, explaining this to them and inviting them to, from their perspective, seek out the right fit for them. And so we talk about these things actually in the interview. Now, what I will tell you is when these things are happening in real time in your office, it's very hard to identify the culprit. And what I've learned over the years as we've grown and gone through instances of this sort of thing, a lot of times I think that the drama is coming from that person when it's really, really coming from this person over here. And it's sort of, I can see it manifest in some of the behaviors here, but it's really that person over there. And so the really important thing is to have a culture where this never gets started. And the way to do that is to really define your culture to your team. Who are we and who are we going to be as a dental practice? And really focusing in on the culture and then living the things that you talk about, but also in the interview process, right from ground zero, identifying things that just aren't going to work in the practice. And, you have, in our case, 20 employees or so. They don't want any of that stuff in the practice. And so when you make it clear to the person coming in and you're talking about that, you make it clear that it's not really part of our culture here. They know coming in, like they don't want to be under the spotlight by the rest of the team because they know when they walk into the practice, that's not really normal behavior in this practice. And we don't really have a problem with this. We have in the past, and especially as we've grown. And a lot of this has to do with just learning. And then as we learn and build a stronger culture, the stronger your culture becomes, the easier it is to protect your culture in a sense. And so what I would say is it's completely unacceptable in our culture and our office, but people learn work rules, so to speak, through their experiences. And in most places that happens. And so they come in with a set of work rules, what they think is normal behavior, and they come into our practice. And we understand that they're going to bring some of these norms that are not acceptable in our practice, but they're acceptable everywhere else. And we, as they come in to interview, we really are intentional about going, hey, this is what our culture is about. And this is what everyone expects, not what I expect, it's what everyone expects from our team members. And I think just focusing in that direction or trying to make those conversations happen and getting really intentional about talking about culture with your team and really getting intentional about setting some goals and some vision of who we are and what we're all about. And then actually talking about those in meetings. When you do identify that it's happening in your office, pulling those people aside and having those conversations about what's expected and setting the expectation of what's expected actually in the interview process is really, really important. You cannot overstate how important that is. Now, sometimes people just need to learn what the norms are in this particular practice. And sometimes people are just toxic or drama or whatever. And when you know that you have a toxic person that's bringing toxic behavior, maybe normal everywhere else, but in your office it's not. If that's not, if that person is toxic, drama, and that's that, and they're not going to learn how to adapt to your culture, they got to go. They got to go. Now, obviously, I'm not an employment attorney and I'm not in your state, so I can't tell you what your legal obligations are there, but I'm saying they don't work in our practice. I won't let someone like that work in our practice. So I hope that gives you some insight. And what I would say is that, like, if this is really something you're struggling with, then, I don't want to sound like I'm just selling my course, but I am, because it really addresses this gets in the weeds with this whole thing about how to build a world-class culture. So if you are struggling with this, I would definitely encourage you to take our world-class culture online course. Also, we have Facebook groups, free community. You can jump in there. We share tips along the ways in there too. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, I would love it if you could comment or like or subscribe and all of those things, because those are the things that helps us get in front of more eyeballs. And so I humbly ask your assistance there. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you the next time.